Good evening. This is the beginning of the collective committee meeting. It is May 19th. We're here at City Hall, and it's 7 p.m. We're going to start our meeting with the Economic Development Committee Chair Zach Arnold.
Thank you. I have two items to discuss tonight. The first item is the First Amendment to the reimbursement agreement with Avon Lake Environmental Redevelopment Group, ALERG. This is a reimbursement agreement for any of the expenses that the city will incur retro January 1st, 2025. The reimbursement agreement includes legal fees, environmental professional fees that we've incurred, and also any other professional services. So Verdanis, specifically Verdanis, Mr. Todd Davis, Burns and Ockner are some of the expenses that we have incurred and we will incur in the next few months here. The agreement itself there's a budget that Mr. Todd Davis put together, and the estimated amount will be $310,175. Like I said, this is retro January 1st, 2025. I see Ted Esborn here. I don't know if Ted, if you have any other comments on this.
Thank you, Councilman. No, I think if there's any spot questions on this, we discussed it quite a bit in committee last week. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Thank you. Any further questions? Mr. Shamir.
Actually, I've got a few points I'd like to put on the slide since this is the venue for discussion before it goes to council. If I may turn on I'm connected. I just need to turn on
Right here. The Diaz?
Yes.
Okay.
So I voted no for this to move to CCM, and there are a number of concerns that I've got. So I'm going to go quickly through and focus on section 5B2, which affirms the city shall not be required to advance funds for assessment, remediation, demolition, or land acquisition. You know, when you look at it, this appears to be a very favorable, but if you look deep into it, it creates a false sense of protection. So if you look at this section, there is no advance funding. But the First Amendment to the reimbursement agreement requires the city to prepare and submit budgets to ALERG for reimbursement. ALERG then has to approve the budget before expenses are reimbursed. What are the potential disadvantages? If ALERG rejects or modifies budget line items, the city may incur upfront costs and face reimbursement delays or denials. What are the risks to the city? Cash flow issues, unrecouped expenses, and compromise independence over selecting professional or timelines. And I'd like to focus on this section more than the rest. The ALERG veto power on cities' external professionals. So when you look at this agreement, the interim development agreements and amendment specifies that ALERG must approve the city budget for external consultants, legal, environmental, engineering, and TIF experts. So ALERG, if they do not like a consultant, they can reject it, and they will not be reimbursed. So they will stipulate who is allowed to work on the job. So what does that mean for us? That gives them indirect control over the city's professional team. This is an unacceptable issue. I mean, we cannot allow a third party to have control on who the city utilizes during this negotiation or evaluation. So this undermines the city's ability to independently hire and consult experts who may challenge ALERG's proposals or strategies, introducing a potential conflict of interest or reducing negotiation leverages. If anyone wants to stop me at any point in time, please don't hesitate. Ambiguity and reasonable standards. The IDA states ALERG will reimburse reasonable professional cost, but reasonable is not defined. So it's an open door for subjective interpretation of disputes over professional fees. What is our risk? ALERG could dispute invoices based on cost, scope, or necessity, delaying reimbursement or leading to litigation or arbitration. No escrow or bonded security. So the reimbursement agreement lacks provision for escrow accounts, surety bonds, or prepaid retainer pools. Now, there was a discussion at the Economic Development Committee that potentially discussed a retainer. So I would like to get clarification on retainers, and what does that mean for the city? If ALERG defaults, dissolves, or delays, the city may be left without recourse for recovering already incurred professional costs. We have a timeline and approval bottlenecks. The city must submit the budget, which ALERG must approve before work is eligible for reimbursement. This creates a procedural bottleneck that could delay time-sensitive environmental due diligence, limits the city's responsiveness to emerging legal or technical issues not favorable to ALERG. And the risk to us is project initiatives are throttled by ALERG, undermining the city's public interest role. Long-term implications, which need to be looked at, and these agreements do not look at it, the duration or frequency of amendments, the cap on reimbursable amounts. So we talked about 310,000. What goes after that? What is beyond? What is the maximum? What happens in the case of cost overruns? Okay? And what is our exposure? Well, the exposure is to escalating legal and environmental costs without a precise mechanism to increase or recover funds, especially if future amendments are stalled. Now, this chart effectively goes down what we have discussed, but I broke it down a little further for everyone to look at. So when you look at this agreement, it looks great. Fundamentally, ALERG is going to pay all the upfront cost. You know, my grandmother said something to me very early in my life: nothing is for free. Nothing. So this is not for free. It goes through reimbursement, yes, but if they approve it, and if they approve the vendors, it is not our choices. It is stipulated by them, and they will have to make the final approvals. So if we want to play, maybe we need to have a negotiation strategy that is not tied directly to ALERG's pocketbook. And that is the reason I voted no, and that is the reason I have put this brief presentation together. So if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Mr. Shamir, do you have a copy for Mr. Esborn? Does anyone want to respond at this point? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. First, it would have been great to have this ahead of time so we could have answered maybe some of the points that you brought up. I will say, I don't know if this is semantics or not, but ALERG must approve the budget before expenses are reimbursed. The actual agreement includes the budget, therefore they're approving the budget. They've actually already signed their side. Once council approves this, the budget is approved. I think maybe what you're referring to would be specific invoices that we receive as a result of the budget.
So any other budget or any cost overruns would have to be approved by them as well. Is there any stipulation that you have a overrun clause that would cover that overrun in a project? No project will remain at 310. You have a potential for overruns.
So we have discussed the fact that this is a preliminary budget, that there will probably be amendments to it. Mr. Todd Davis discussed that when he made his presentation before. There was something else I was going to try to address for you here. And as far as the vendors are included within the budget. That is part of the amendment. That is actually part of the exhibit. That is part of the agreement. And again, had a little more time, I probably could have addressed some more of these, but I'm not sure if either Ted or Gary want to respond to any of these that Mr. Shamir has brought up.
I will tell you this, I just finished it before, I was just printing it out as I was finishing it. And the reason for going through and comparing these documents is to getting an understanding that nothing is for free. When you commit that they can choose your consultant, you effectively allow them to drive their initiative based on what makes sense for them. And that is stipulated in there, and that was discussed. So, in the meeting with Mr. Todd Davis.
I would add that number 3, deposit by Aylard with the city. I'm not sure if we want to count that as an escrow account, but they're depositing $50,000 to cover our reimbursements. When that gets down to $10,000, they will then increase that back up to $50,000 towards the expenses. Let's see what else. Again, they're not choosing our vendors. Our vendors have been chosen by the very nature of Exhibit A, which outlines who's going to get paid what at what hourly rate. And again, I think to your point, they do have the right, according to the agreement, to review the invoices and make objections. And if there is an objection, then there's a mechanism for us to sit down and discuss those and come to some agreement. And again, that's just a precursor to some of the other things I could probably add, but again, with just getting this information, it might be hard to do.
So,
Mr. Shamir, could we have other input, then we'll come back to you?
Okay.
Since you opened it, and I want you to close it, sure. Anyone else? Mr. Cos?
Yeah, thank you. This passed out of the Economic Development Committee last week. Is that correct, Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
And was there a discussion on how many readings or how fast that this was going to come up for a vote from council? Just trying to get an idea of what the scheduling of this is going to be.
Sure. It was for approval next week, suspension of the rules, emergency passage.
And what was the reason given for the suspension in first reading?
Did you want to answer that?
I can answer that. So no action is being taken on the current IDA or the purchase agreement until this reimbursable agreement is signed, because we don't want to put our funds at risk. So no action will be taken on the purchase agreement until such time as this agreement is approved. The idea here is to get the purchase agreement signed, because we can't do anything as far as seeking grants or any other work until the purchase agreement is signed. So the time necessity is, if we want this project to continue moving, we need to get the purchase agreement completed. To get the purchase agreement completed, we have to have the reimbursable agreement completed first.
And my line of questioning on this is because, like has been mentioned, we just received this document just as this meeting was beginning. I want to make sure that there's ample time to address Mr. Shamir's points that he had in there, and if there's things that can be done to make this a better document, we would need time to do that. And I do want to say one thing is that I do appreciate that you have suggested protections in there. So there can be times when people can come forward with why they don't like something or why they're against something, but I appreciate that you had reasons of why your concerns could be some of these things that you have brought up could be dealt with. So I do appreciate that. But I just wanted to get an idea of the scheduling of this based on how we received this tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other council members? Mr. Mr. Zuber.
Just that if we get this to both Burns Mr. Davis, in regards to having them give some feedback to what Mr. Shamir's brought forward, I think getting some opinions from them would help us make a better decision.
I can send that out today, or tonight, after the meeting.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to say, Mr. Escalon?
Thank you, Council President. I have two thoughts. First is the one that the mayor pointed out, that after Ehlers signs the budget, then at least we are assured of the contractors and the amounts in that budget. The second is, in the process, I have also been concerned particularly about power to veto consultants and what is reasonable professional cost. I think what steadied me on each of those is that our consultants, I think we brought on not just for their expertise, but for the exposure they have in the field and their ability to say what is the common or standard practice. In this case, I think it's more Todd than Jordan or Majid, but certainly Todd is saying that this is within the standard practice in this situation, and he has, he and Burns Ochner have certainly shown concern when they didn't think that was the case. So that was my second thought.
Thank you. Mr. Arnold, I think your hand might have been up. Did I see it correctly?
Yeah, I was just going to say to Mr. Costu that Mr. Davis was at the meeting last Tuesday. He answered all of our questions. I imagine Mr. Shamir didn't have the time to digest it all or take it all in. He probably had some follow-up questions, which you brought up tonight. So,
Thank you. Anybody else from City Council? Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith? Okay. Ms. Gentry, anything down here? I want to make sure everybody has a chance to say something.
Not yet, but I want to
Okay.
review the documents and I'll
Thank you.
email.
I do want to say something, and then, Mr. Shamir, as I said, you opened it, so I'm going to have you close it with the last word. One of the things that I thought was interesting is on page 2, number 2, it says objections to consultant reimbursements, and this is what it says. ALERG shall receive written notice of the city's consultants upon being engaged by the city, which they've done, and of their compensation and hourly rates, if applicable, which we've done. ALERG shall not have the right to object to any consultant's compensation or hourly rate unless such compensation or hourly rate is unreasonable based upon the consultant's qualifications excuse me, and scope of work. In the event of an objection by ALERG, the parties shall meet and confer and make their best efforts to resolve the objection. So that part is in here. And then with that stated, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Shamir. Thank you, to close it out.
On the cost issue, yes, but specifically, Mr. Todd Davis made a mention that they had approved a couple of the assessors, but not the others. So that in itself is a conversation that was had at the committee. And for me, that made me go back and look at the agreement. So there should be no allowance for ALERG to have any influence on who is selected. And if it's already been vetted and approved by ALERG, and that's why we've got the budget that we have, it's still stipulated by them who can be and who cannot. So specifically, yes, I have been digesting and I have been going back and forth. But when I look at it, there's a lot of holes in it. There's a lot of holes across this thing. And I will say that, yes, the reputation of Mr. Todd Davis and Burns Ochner, yes, that is great. But at the end of the day, the city of Avon Lake has a brain, has a chain of command and has an authority and has the responsibility to look at and ask the questions. That is what I'm doing because I feel like there are a lot of unknowns. And we don't have to sit there and pass this through because we're in rush to get the money or get the funds to start the project. First of all, maybe we should utilize funds and resources to get us to the table and negotiate on a fair footing. You don't go begging in a negotiation. You go sit down at equals. When you take funds from someone else to fund the basics of your negotiation, you're already on the back foot. And that's the fundamentals of negotiation. You always try to have the upper hand. And at this juncture and with what we have, we don't have the upper hand. We are on our back foot because we're taking money from ALERG to start the process, which will be returned to them if the TIF passes. So we are literally borrowing money at a very, very high interest. And that interest is not financial. It is our position in this negotiation. And I've made this comment clear time and again to everyone here, as well as Mr. Todd Davis. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing up your concerns. It will be of great interest to the rest of council to see the responses from our experts, but thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We're going to move on, Mr. Arnold, to number 2 on the agenda.
Yes, the second on the agenda is a new engagement letter with Attorney Todd Davis. This passed out of our committee 3-0, and it specifies specifically what Todd Davis's role is and to engage him. Once again, the rates are in Exhibit A. The total amount in the budget, I believe, is $47,000. And that's what these kind of go hand in hand, but this is specifically with the agreement with Todd Davis.
Any questions for Mr. Arnold at this point? Mr. Cos?
Yeah, just same question on the scheduling. When were you calling for the vote on the Todd Davis piece of this?
It'd be the same as the previous one. So suspension of the rules, emergency passage.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on then. The next topic has to do with the Human Resource Committee with Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Council President. We have the, coming out of committee is the court bailiff and clerk of court job descriptions. The court did ask today that they want to take some time to review the court bailiff job description some further. So we're going to pull that. The clerk of court's job description is attached as well. And there's really not a whole lot to it other than she's the clerk of court or he's the clerk of court. At this point, it's a she, but and that job description's there. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Right, and this is being directed by the judge through
Yes,
HR,
Judge
is that
Manning.
correct?
That's correct, Judge Manning.
Any questions for Mr. Smith? Seeing none, okay, now we're going to go on to Public Service Committee, which I chair. The first item, we have 3 items. The first item is amend ordinance number 24-81, agreement for design services for the Electric Boulevard Bridge, replacement with American Structure Point, Inc., that's the contractor, to include waterline design and coordination beyond original scope of services. While they were preparing the work, it was found that there needed to be additional stormwater line, there needed to be additional water line work done. And whatever the city pays, it will be reimbursed by Avon Lake Regional Water. I'd like to have Mr. Liskovic continue on this topic, if you could.
Sure. As you'd mentioned, there was additional coordination of design service with Avon Lake Regional Water due to they've got a fairly sizable transmission line that runs underneath the current structure. So that required multiple meetings and conversations with regional water staff to get those details down and incorporated in the plans for the project.
Yes, and this will be an additional $18,900. Is that correct?
Yes.
Any questions from anyone on this topic? Okay, this will be on Monday, and Mr. Liskovic, what do you need this to be? It's an amendment? You need this to go through the first reading?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, the second item is the purchase of snow and ice body package from Henderson Products, Inc. Sounds like deja vu, right? We have purchased one of these trucks before. This we were going to call Truck B. It's underneath the NPP Gov contract for services that are done for many cities, and the amount that we're looking at is $126,588. This again is Henderson, utilizing the cooperative agreement. Any questions from anyone on this topic? Okay, Mr. Liskovic, anything else on this?
Nothing, as you said, it's a duplication of the one that was approved earlier.
Okay, and I noticed that with the date of the quote, that was March the 28th, you are going to need this to be done by when? You need this on what reading to guarantee it?
It would be advantageous to have it done within one reading. There was the expiration of the quote, which is in end of, or middle of June, I believe, on there. But obviously the quicker we can get it turned around, it would be better to get back to Henderson, and then they'll queue the two trucks up together.
They'll queue them together. Any discussion on the timing of this with anyone? Okay, then we'll put this down for first reading. Okay, next item. Submerged land leases for Benjamin Basinski at 32106 Lake Road, Alan Howarth at 32114 Lake Road, and Jeffrey Darkow at 32118 Lake Road. These submerged land leases have come before us in the past, and typically what has to happen is that the city needs to look at the area administratively through our department heads to see if there's going to be any future use along these areas. And if none, then we go ahead and we accept the submerged land lease. These three occurred already, and so it's a look back, it's an after the fact to bring them into compliance. Is there any other discussion anyone wants to have on these three topics, on these three properties? Seeing none, okay. We've got to meet up with Ohio Department of Natural Resources and the civil engineer, so this is going to have to go through first reading. Okay, we're going to move now along to Planning Commission. Mr. Smith.
What you have in your packet tonight was approved by Planning Commission. I think I mentioned it in my report last time that we would be sending these over for council to take a look at. It's recommendations from the city administrators relative to some changes, text amendments otherwise known as, in the zoning code and the planning code. A couple of you can see the if you have the highlight the red line version where the changes have been made. If you've had a chance to review it, I'm happy to answer any questions. One of the things I think that you'll see there is the removal of HVAC and generators from side yards. Although it looks like they're allowed in the front yards, they need to be screened. That seems to me to be one of the biggest ones that might be of some concern to folks sitting up here, because I think an awful lot of the current HVACs are on the side of the houses. But I think that all has to do with trying to reduce noise and to adjoining neighbors. But I think they're relatively straightforward. They also included the review recommendations for both final plats and improvement plans by adding the improvement plans under procedure for major subdivisions. I think there was also one other item that might be of interest, and that had to do with the requirements, of the traffic impact analysis, which is number 6, which was already in there, but it kind of changed it to the degree of when it's needed, when it's due to the size, density of the traffic generation rates, as determined by the development review committee. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Smith? Mr. Cos?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Smith, just for clarification, the requirement not to have the generators or HVAC equipment on side yards going forward, that's only for new building?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you could be grandfathered if you already had it on an old one and you brought a new one in because it was already set up and wired for it to be there. So yes, I don't know how we'd be able to move them out of the side yards in those situations.
We have Mr. Esper in here. Perhaps he could enlighten us.
Thank you, Council President. On that one, I think we're only talking about screening of generators in the side yard. So I don't think we're talking about permissibility, just screening.
Any further questions, Mr. Cos, on this one?
If I could. I
No.
think it's ambiguous though, because it said you don't have generators, they don't talk about it, generators being in the side yards anymore. I mean, I wouldn't think that we want it to be where if it's in the side yard, that it doesn't have to be screened or protected.
I think that was the change, though. And I think that the reasoning was difficulty of enforcement given the side setbacks in some of these situations where there are generators in the side yard.
Mr. Smith, when I read this, and Mr. Esborn, I think there's two parts to it.
Yeah, there's a section D as well.
Correct. The very bottom, it says, such screening requirements shall not apply when the generators or HVAC system is to be located in a side yard adjacent to a lot in a non-residential zoning district. So I think it's only when it's in a non-residential zoning district there would not be screening. Otherwise, there would be screening, whether it's side yard, backyard, because you could look through somebody else's backyard if you're back to back. The topic came up when I was on planning, and part of it had to do with noise. And the screening helps keep the noise of the generator down.
Right.
Any other questions on this particular topic with generators? Okay. Is that a handout? I'm looking down here.
Just,
Okay. Mrs.
my only
Gentry.
thought was, for temporary, I'm assuming this doesn't apply for temporary, if you're putting temporary generator out during, storms, whatever, I'm assuming it doesn't apply.
This would be for permanent generator, would it not?
You're right, because I think a temporary would not be an accessory use, or, yeah, it would not be an accessory use.
Any other questions by my colleagues? The one comment I have to make is that I'm really glad to see a little bit of cleanup here with the improvement plans on major subdivisions, because we really needed to define the difference with final plat improvement plans. Are they together? Are they not? And now you're going to have the same items for final as you do for improvement. Before, it was a little loosey-goosey. And this hopefully will be of help to your process, Mr. Smith and Mr. Esborn. Yes, Ms. Gentry.
The other question was, you removed the part about the city engineer having authority to make decisions. Who is now making that decision? That was in section 4,
Right.
major subdivisions.
So, it is planning commission and council. That, 121405 C7D4, you know, it always suggested at least that the city engineer, I think the wording is, make a decision on the improvement plans, which was in conflict with our practice of planning commission and council approving improvement plans.
And if I could add to that, just from my experience being on planning all those years, the city engineer always has a say. They always have an opinion. It comes through the DRE. It comes through the recommendations of the engineering review that the planning commission members receive. So it's just what has changed is who is the authority to be making the decision, the final decision. And that's where it's coming back to our code, planning commission, city council. And there's direct steps that are followed for the planning commission and how to move something that has passed or has not passed from planning to city council. Is that correct, Mr. Smith? Do you agree?
Yeah, I just think it was ambiguous that the engineer might be able to approve some of these things without council's input.
Ms. Gentry, does that satisfy your
Yes, thank you.
question? Anyone else with a question? Okay, thank you.
I'd like to send council, just a clarification on the generator screening, just because I want everybody to be crystal clear, so we'll send.
That'd be good. You'll flush it out for us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anything else, Mr. Smith? From you. Okay. So we are going to add something. Right before this meeting, there was communication, environmental, and recreational programming, and something was passed that needed to be on this agenda. Mr. Shamir, can you take it from here?
Yes. First of all, I see Ms. Ann Kohler here, so I just want to make a statement that I did collect the samples from her home, and those are now here. Actually, they're here. And there's going to be communication with Verdantis on the interview that you had, and then from there we'll move forward. That is as far as the samples go. The items to be discussed were the 3 EAB member vacancies that we had. We have received 5 resumes, we have conducted interviews, and we have made a selection, which we would like to move to next week's council meeting on the 26th for approval. The candidates that were selected were Mr. Martin Matusak, Mr. John Potraziba, and Mr. Eric Krieg. They will be moving to next week's council for approval on an emergency basis. Thank you.
Any questions from anyone? Thank you, Mr. Shamir. And I do want to go back to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, what is your intention about the planning and zoning code amendments? How many reads?
My plan was 3, and I've just confirmed it now since we're going to have potentially some changes to it.
3 readings, very good. Okay, thank you. Okay. We're going to move along now to legislation, the 3rd reading, ordinance number 25-86. Ms. Rossmarin, do you want to read this out for us?
An ordinance adopting a job description for the position of professional engineer in Avon Lake Regional Water and establishing the qualifications and duties for said position.
Mr. Smith, any comments on this one?
No, these have been, all 3 of these, in fact, the 4th one as well, have been before council. It's going to be 3rd reading and be asked to be passed.
Thank you, sir. Questions from anyone else? Okay, the very next one is ordinance number 25-87.
An ordinance adopting a job description for the position of senior professional engineer in Avon Lake Regional Water and establishing the qualifications and duties for said position.
Any comments, Mr. Smith, on this one?
Same comments.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Smith? Okay, we'll move along then. Ordinance number 25-88.
An ordinance adopting a job description for the position of Business Development Director in Avon Lake Regional Water and establishing the qualifications and duties for said position.
Mr. Smith, anything else on this one?
Thank you. Same comment. These are all been sent over from the Utilities Board.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to ordinance number 25-89.
An ordinance fixing compensation ranges for Avon Lake Regional Water non-bargaining positions, repealing ordinance number 23-193 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Smith, this is the last one with Avon Lake Regional Water.
Yes, it is, and these are the pay ranges for various jobs for employees that are non-bargaining.
Thank you. Any comments on this one from Mr. Smith? Okay, we're going to move along now to second readings. Ordinance number 25-98.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a personal services agreement with Simvey LLC for enterprise cyber risk management services and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Shamir, any comments on this one?
This is going to be passed on third reading.
We'll vote on it on third reading?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, any comments from Mr. Shamir on this one? Okay, we'll move along then to ordinance number 25-99.
An ordinance authorizing a donation to community resource services and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Zuber, any comments on this one?
Just that when it was voted out of the committee, it was voted out to be passed on the second reading. So I'll be looking for a suspension of the rule on Monday to pass it then.
Thank you. Any comments from Mr. Zuber on this one? All right, then we're going to move along. We're now at the point for public input. Does anyone from the audience want to come forward on any topic? You have 5 minutes.
Gerald Phillips, Avon Lake, concerned citizen. Corruption, defined as dishonesty, untruthfulness, fraudulent, deceptive. In my opinion, is somebody who doesn't have any of these qualities: openness, impartiality, honesty, integrity, and transparency. Let's talk about the First Amendment reimbursement agreement. If it wasn't for Mr. Shamir, it'd probably be railroad, just like the Burns-Ochner. You know, rush, emergency basis. What's interesting is it's supposed to take effect April 16th. And ALERG has already signed the agreement, preconceived agreement to these terms, even before Mr. Shamir could criticize. That's a definition of corruption, right there. Right there. We didn't have any discussions until he brought them up today. And he didn't have them because of the Economic Development Committee, because a lot of the stuff wasn't discussed. So, corruption. Veto. They get the veto. Mr. Shamir adequately pointed that out. Reasonable compensation. You look at that agreement, it's one-sided. It's all geared to ALERG. Another bully situation where they dictate what the terms are. They get to approve favorable consultants only, and they've already got them. They got Verdantis, who works next door to Todd Davis, and they worked on other deals. You can rest assured they worked on other deals, and probably with Sherrard and Burns-Ochner. And we'll get into the fact that all three of those are favorable consultants for ALERG, and I'll point out conflict of interest. We can talk about Article 8, Section 6 of the Ohio Constitution that says a city cannot lend its credit to a private corporation. That's what we're doing. The interim development agreement is a joint venture, which is illegal. Clearly a conflict of interest between these consultants and ALERG on those reimbursement. I got a multiple choice question for council. How much have we paid Todd Davis to date? Answer A is under 100 grand. B is between 100 and 150. C is between 150 and 200. D is 200 to 250, and E is over 250. What do you think we paid him so far today? Anybody? You approve his bills. Does anybody have an answer to that question? I'd like to know. Council President, do you know how much we paid him?
I would say E.
E? That's right. $294,300. That's what we paid. let's go to the fact that the payments to Todd Davis and Burns Ochner are illegal. The warrant to pay those are illegal. Todd Davis doesn't have an ordinance authorizing his agreement. This proposed amendment dated April 24th is his first contract. So, illegal payments. Let's talk about the interim development agreement and the letter of intent. You signed the interim development agreement. Council approved it except for Mr. Shamir. We got the mayor illegally signing the letter of intent. In that interim development agreement, the city's obligated to buy the land for $15 million and 15 million improvements in the agreement, which you agreed to. You agreed to. But little do you, and Mr. Shamir has brought this up about we hold the key and we've been bad negotiators. And Todd Davis is a bad negotiator. Burns Ochner is a bad negotiator because they got conflict of interest. Okay? We're buying land that we don't have to buy. 12-1905 in this proposed overlay says that the developer is supposed to dedicate public parkland of at least 20 acres. We don't have to pay for it. It's a requirement of the overlay district. And what? We're giving away $30 million, taking away from the schools. Burns Ochner, Mr. Shamir, has acted about conflict of interest. Burns Ochner represents developers. They're going to represent the vertical people. We got 3 people on the Brownfield Committee that got extensive real estate experience. Andrew Perry, Steve Luca, and Jeff Browse. They're going to profit from this. So we got conflict of interest. Burns is a conflict of interest, didn't negotiate in best interest of the city, okay? When they approved that interim development agreement, making you buy the land. I'd like a few more minutes.
Does anyone have an objection to any more
I
minutes?
object.
I'm going to take, just a moment, sir.
I want a roll
Sir,
call vote.
sir, just a moment, please. Just, if you don't mind, just a moment. I'd like to do a roll call.
What is the question?
The question is, can Mr. Phillips have 2 more minutes?
No.
Ms. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Shamir?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenderbosh?
Yes.
Let's see. Mr. Arnold?
Sure.
Mr. Smith? Sure. And Mr. Zuber?
No.
Okay, we have a majority here, so we're going to give you 2 more minutes, Mr. Phillips. Thank you.
Now we can look at Burns Ochner's invoice and see the extent of how much they've negotiated overlay district. They're billing the city, review and analyze proposed overlay district, and Jordan Burns red lines to same, May 10th, 2023. May 10th, review city code and analyze course of action on procedures for overlay district. Okay? May 10th, discussion with Majid Makouf, who I know very well, regarding ALERG's proposed zoning language in preparation for discussion with the Avon Lake representative. ALERG dictated, the terms of the interim development agreement. That's why you're buying it for $15 million when you don't have to. Listen to Mr. Shamir when he brought that up the other day, and I supported him, that we have the key. We don't need to buy that land. We make it mandatory in 12-1905 that they develop all 40 acres, and 20 acres of that is public park, and we don't have to pay 1 penny. Okay? Now, who negotiated that? Who negotiated that on behalf of the city? Okay? Todd Davis, who you paid $300,000 for? Burns Ochner? I know Burns Ochner. They're going to represent Mr. Perry, Mr. Luca, and Jeffrey Browse. Go read their resumes, see what they do for a living. They're developers, vertical developers. Don't you think they got a conflict of interest? So who's representing the city? I want the city to get a good deal. And the only person I know that have basically highlighted that is Mr. Shamir. He brought up the fact that we got the key, and we do. We don't have to buy that land. They want the overlay. They put like A lot of zoning codes, 50% green space. So listen to Mr. Shamir. He's a very intelligent person. Thank you for the extra time.
You're welcome, sir. Anybody else would like to speak on any topic for 5 minutes?
William Zimmerman. I have to agree, Mr. Todd Davis isn't a negotiator. He's a brownfield expert, there's no doubt about that. He's written books. He's an authority. Spoken at so many lectures and stuff, I got tired of reading about it. But from my standpoint, he's a crook. A crook means you're dishonest. He stood up here and told Ms. Gentry that the appraisal was part of the process. Burns-Ochner did the same thing. Neither one of those people should be trusted. We've already trying to move forward on it. You already did the Burns-Ochner agreement without have it go through council properly. Didn't go through the committee, it didn't go through a CCM. You brought it here one day and crammed it down our throats. And Mr. Shamir and Ms. Gentry were the two who said, I have a hard time with this because this isn't normal. This isn't right. But the rest of you didn't care. Violated your oath of office because you didn't follow proper procedures. But you didn't care because we're trying to move this along. He's not a negotiator. He said the price was $20 million. How did it get to that? Who came up with that idea? Out of nowhere. Picked it out of the sky? Or is it because they can turn the $20 million investment into 100? I've been researching these vertical developments. Things that have been done in the city. The amount of money that can be made is astronomical. Now, we've asked in the public records request to get the original Todd Davis agreement. No one's provided it to us yet. It's been probably 10 days. I don't understand that. It should be readily available, easy to access. That doesn't seem like proper storage if we can't find it and can't get it to us. This is an integral part to know what his original agreement was. The only thing I can think of is that this was discussed in a brownfield committee meeting. And so nobody knows. Nobody took minutes. Nobody has videos. Nobody has anything as what we've been told. So, did Steve Luca and Mr. Todd Davis and the rest of the brownfield people, because Mr. Davis is on the brownfield committee, they came up with their own agreement in a separate meeting? Or nobody else was included or involved? Sounds like corruption to me. This is why I don't understand how this process just keeps getting shoved along. There's no doubt we want the ALERG property to be improved. But it needs to be done properly. It needs to have transparency, openness, so people see the deals that are cut, that are made behind the scenes are the ones I'm worried about. Because it's not transparent. He wants to shove this down our throats again, like I said. Gonna have a passage on first reading. Why don't you table it and give it an opportunity to sit there while people try to figure it out? Are we really worried about the funding? or worried about what's gonna happen to the money. Somebody will be there to develop the land. It's too valuable. There's no reason to rush. Unless you're hiding something. Then you want to shove it along because you don't want nobody to know. I think I want to commend the council for giving Mr. Phillips 2 additional minutes.
You're welcome, sir. Anybody else like to come forward on any topic? Seeing none.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask for a change for our normal format, which council can do also by roll call or general consent, to ask the law director to briefly reply to some of the comments made tonight. I think I counted about 10 uses of the word illegal, and I think it would be inappropriate to leave that hanging out there without the law director at least having the opportunity to respond.
Does anyone have any objections to this, first of all? If you have any objections, come forward. Seeing none. Mr. Ebert.
I've heard that statement many times. There's no proof whatsoever illegal concerning the ALRG agreement, the appraisal that was done, that was actually an old appraisal, which was done by the Metro Parks at the time. It's always being brought up. The agreement itself with ALRG has been open-ended. It's been very discussed in many ways. It needs to be amended because the reimbursement agreement itself for the city, to make sure the city is not going to take additional funds and not get reimbursed. I've been very concerned about that. As a matter of fact, one of Mr. Davis's bills was held until such time as an agreement was put together. It's still pending on as far as being paid. And Beth, you know that we've held that agreement because of that situation. It's easy to stand at the microphone and say illegal. There's no basis whatsoever. Everything's been done above boards on this situation. There's lawsuits pending on a lot of the number of matters that they're bringing up here. When the court makes rulings on those situations, we will, obviously bring that to the council's attention. But everything's been done in open forum. There's nothing hidden behind the scenes with illegal agreements or private conversations being done. Been very careful concerning that situation. As far as Mr. Davis's original agreement that Mr. Zimmerman asked for, I will look at tomorrow as far as where that is and what the situation is myself. So I'll make sure it does. I know there was number of issues concerning recently about asking for various public record documents. I found out that the documents were waiting for various transcription through through Stephanie as far as what needed to be done. She was waiting for from Mr. Zimmerman for records to be able to actually manufacture them for a tape, for a disc that had to be bought by him and not used. So that was another issue that's brought up, that we're holding something back. We are not. We are spending right now an unbelievable amount of time with Julie, who spends, I'd say 90 plus hours, 90 plus of her percentage time on responding to public records. She's very thorough, she's very concise, she keeps a chart on everything being done, but she is inundated, with the public records that I request, and it's done all the time. This is done every week that she's here. That's all she does, is that type of situation. So we're spending a lot of time responding. We respond in a very diligent, expedient manner, especially with the volume of documents that's being requested concerning this past year anyway. So we've been very transparent, the city. So I have yet to see anything that's done illegal from a legal standpoint. Everything's open-ended. We have many discussions about the public records requests when they come in to make sure that they are transferred to the right department. And they're all organized back through Julie, so we have a one person who's got the records. Because a lot of times you ask for emails, there may be emails sent for 7 or 8 people in City Hall. We make sure that everything goes through Julie, so there's documented concerning any records requests before they go out, and they're time-stamped as far as when they go out. So we're very thorough on that. That situation has been really started from going through each department to make responding to having a central located person to respond. It's been very efficient and very legal concerning that matter. I can't, I'm not sure what specifically, Mr. Kosh, you want me to.
No, I appreciate that. I just think that it's important to hear from our law director when some of the things that have been said publicly and public input are made, especially about private citizens as well, too.
we are very responsive to private citizens concerning their records request or any type of comments or, that are done. The issue concerning sitting here at council or anything else, obviously the council meetings, you've got your public session, but council meetings are to try to get the legislation done for the benefit of the public as a whole, as far as contracts and things like that need to be get done in order to have an efficient operation of the city. And I think the city goes well beyond that situation. Thank you.
I appreciate the comments. Thank you very much. Anybody else on this topic? Seeing none, then we're going to adjourn the meeting, and we're not going to see you next Monday. Next Monday is Memorial Day. We will be back in these chambers on Tuesday. Thank you. Have a good evening.